nutrient density on a label. So when a customer can really understand the amount of good things, macros, micros, phytos, peptides, all of the things, when they can really understand the amount of good things per calorie they are getting, I believe it starts to fundamentally change the food system. Because when you try and make good food, it is inherently like significantly harder than if you try and make reasonable commoditized food, right?
Welcome back to the Fitt Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Veneri. Today I'm joined by Jake Muise, co-founder and CEO of Maui Nui Venison. In this episode, we talk about transforming an ecological crisis into a community-first regenerative food company. Plus, we discuss balancing conservation and commerce, the pitfalls of the high-protein craze, and why nutrient density should be on every food label. Let's get into it. The Fitt Insider Podcast is presented by EGYM. EGYM's smart fitness ecosystem is transforming healthcare through exercise. Combining strength equipment with AI-powered software and corporate wellness platform WellPass, it's leading the shift to proactive preventative health. Learn more about EGYM's intelligent workout solutions at egym.com. Hi, Jake. Welcome to Fitt Insider. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here, Joe.
I'm super excited for this conversation. We chatted a bit before we hit record here, and I'm a huge fan, a lot of respect for what you're building and how you're going about it. For folks who aren't familiar, maybe just quick introduction to yourself and Maui Nui, and we'll get into it from there.
Sure. So my name is Jake Muise. I'm a dad, husband, and lucky enough to get to play CEO and also the co-founder of Maui Nui Venison. We harvest wild axis deer on Maui to help balance those populations while providing nutrient-dense foods for customers and our community as well.
For folks who aren't familiar, just maybe what is axis deer? What is the problem, and how did that transition into, we can create a business and feed people and do it in a sustainable way?
Axis deer are a non-native species, so an invasive species that is now on Maui, introduced in the 60s and 70s. They are one of the most prolific deer species on the planet. Just a little biology fact: they're one of the only deer that are capable of breeding year round, which will give good context to what the problem is. They got introduced to a place that everybody thinks of Hawaii as this amazing, extraordinary place. It is it's perfect weather, beautiful green grasses and slopes. So they introduced one of the most prolific animals. So what ended up happening was a population explosion, much like you hear in other invasive stories, but this one is very unique to place. So at population densities that are extremely unhealthy for ecosystems and communities, they quickly became a problem. So that's context to what axis deer is. How I got to know them was a little bit different. Grew up in a subsistence hunting family in northern Canada. So venison and game meat was always a part of my life. It was always valuable to me. And then got to come to the University of Hawaii 20 years ago to play some Division I sports, and got really lucky and got placed in a dormitory with a local Hawaiian guy from a small island of Molokai. And that family basically took me in, took amazing care of me. And then on that island, I was then introduced now 26 years ago to axis deer. But my orientation to that animal was it's food. It's this amazing resource. And I'm sure you remember how bad the food at college was. So any opportunity to go and get some amazing food and bring it back in a little cooler and stick it in your little dorm room freezer, we did that all the time. The founder or entrepreneurial moment, which was not in those first couple of years, was we were going back on a regular trip, rounded the corner to kind of our favorite hunting area, saw a whole bunch of deer laying down, and I can still remember it vividly, and they weren't moving, and I was a little bit confused, and then quickly realized that there were there's about 200 of them lying there dying of malnutrition. So essentially, without predation and on very small isolated islands, these populations were growing out of control. And the only way those populations were reset is essentially there were every 10 to 15 years of these huge die-offs where tens of thousands of animals would die because they didn't have anything to eat. I remember that like being in that place and experiencing that. And initially it was just food. It was like, wait, these animals aren't healthy. We can't eat them. That was like the initial. But then I remember like standing there and being like, wait, this is this is the answer. This incredible resource, like this is how it's managed. And I think that started a very long, very obsessive relationship with deer and ultimately the problem of like turning them into food.
As you're describing that, maybe not specific to looking out or coming across herds of animals dying in front of us, but just like problems that we have that like basically are hitting us in the face every day. That's just like, and nobody's doing anything about this. Like, there's no like who's taking action to solve this. It's obviously like in this case, an environmental problem. It's a food system problem. It's a like land management, like all these sorts of things. How do you even start to then say like, oh, like, yeah, like this is you talked about like the entrepreneurial like aha moment, but just like, oh, we can hunt them, we can harvest them, we can, and then what? Like, what does that look like in terms of, especially your kind of mission led way of tackling this?
I think you start where every entrepreneur starts. You start as a fool that's like irrationally optimistic, that believes like they could somehow piece it all together. And I think probably what served me well in that pursuit was I could see the end. So I could like see the end that was like managing them on a large scale and it being able to provide food for like community and customers. I actually thought for 7 years I could do it as a nonprofit. So I thought for 7 years, like, oh, this is an amazing idea. Of course the government will fund this. Of course I could find like philanthropic funding to turn this problem into food. Nope. So 7 years of that pursuit through kind of the Access Deer Institute and this nonprofit and realizing like that's not going to solve the problem. And then there was basically another 6 years of figuring out, okay, if I can't do it that way, how do I turn this into food we can sell so that we can solve the problem of like eating enough of them to balance populations? And another very long story short, that was a 6-year saga to figure out both the systems and the rules to work within the current USDA structure to make that happen. If I'd have just been like, I want to harvest a few of these and make money, I think it would have been like really, really different. But for better or for worse, I like saw the picture in my head 20 years ago of like what it could look like at scale and how it could really like serve community in place. And so that was like stuck there. So everything I was building with that scale in mind, and took 7 years to figure out. So what was about like 5 or 6 years earlier from today, we were finally able to like get over those USDA hurdles and start the process of like turning it into food to both serve customers with and serve our community. And then it's been like an amazing journey of then understanding marketing and how you get people to eat it and Shopify and like all the things that then turn you into like an actual CPG brand that's actually trying to like sell food, right?
The scale at which it is today, do you measure by number of products sold, revenue, number of people fed? Like, how do you kind of put the metrics on that?
Yeah, our primary metric is always deer harvested. So we are now doing about like 15 to 18,000 deer a year harvested. And that number is always tied to like actually achieving balance. So we survey every single night and we have a livestock level understanding of like the number of deer. And so the true number is like deer harvested, but the number that like comes right after that is like how many do we need to balance populations in the different places that we work with. So that's like the core of who we are is we achieving our mission of balancing populations so that ecology, community, food systems, reefs, all the things you mentioned as like environmental disaster, like all the bad things turn into good things. And we're so lucky and proud to be like doing that now, which is pretty amazing.
And then mention like this, becoming a CPG brand. What does that assortment range, SKUs, if you will, like look like today in terms of like what's available?
hilarious. Somebody on my team the other day was like, "Oh my God, I didn't realize you were a merchant." And I was like, "What are you talking about? What's a merchant?" It's like you start from like a old Squarespace website to like where you are today in terms of like your product mix and your pricing and like all the things you need to understand. And it really has also reversed into like what does it take to balance population. So like really, really early on, I realized from like a business standpoint, I was like, oh man, we need subscribers. Seems like a simple understanding, but like if I can, if it's all this time and energy to like get them here and they love the product, it's cost me a lot less money to take care of that person than it does to go find me a new one. So there are all these like really simple understandings as I started to understand what CPG looked like. So we are primarily a subscription based CPG business. It's 90% of revenue.
I kind of want to get into like, look, harvesting this and doing it in a sustainable way, and then making that match consumer behavior, preference, the demand, like that is like a whole, you're solving so many different problems across the board of like fitting this into actually getting it to people in a way, like you said, becoming a marketer, becoming a merchant, like what are people buying? What has resonated with people? And then we will go from there.
Two primary categories for us is like what you would know as like your fresh cuts, your steaks. And so that line for us, we call our reserve line. So it's 14 days of like beautifully aged venison that's going to come as like a rib chop or a leg medallion or ground. And there's different assortments of those subscription boxes that best fit family, single guy. Like those are the assortment of those subscriptions that like are best fit for that customer. And then the second category for us is really like snack. We call it snack. But all of our like venison sticks, which is most people would understand as like jerky, and then recently like our summer sausage, which is just like amazing, like deli meat, the best lunch meat on the planet. Those are kind of our two primary categories, and most often they're different people. So we've learned that a lot of times the person that's consuming 9 to 12 pounds of our like fresh product a month, yeah, they're getting sticks, but they're not necessarily always the same customer. A lot of the customers that we greet that decide to eat that much venison, we start to become their only protein source. A lot of people that eat our snacks they are functionally choosing them probably more tactically, i.e. like protein per calorie, iron, like they're choosing them for like a tactical, clear purpose that is in support of the other proteins that they're eating. So we kind of have like these really interesting customer base. And then within there, like any business, we have these really cool segments. We have like a vegan pescatarian segment. People that decided to stop eating red meat a long time ago, found us. We became the only for like one reason or the other. Could be the stress-free harvesting, could be nutrient density, could be mission and purpose, could be any of those reasons. But we become like the only protein they'll touch. And the LTV on them is like extraordinary. And we try and like speak to them very specifically. So I didn't understand any of that 7 years ago. I was like, turn the button on. I think it should be 9 pounds. I think it should be like, didn't understand any of it. And lots of trial and error and lots of great people have helped us kind of figure out how to greet customers where they're at and continue to kind of grow our business and our mission.
Once we touch on more of the harvesting and sustainability, which I do want to do, I kind of want to get some of the more consumer aspects up front. It's like, that's almost the least interesting thing that you guys do, is like produce this incredible food that is high in protein and super nutritious. And I found a way to bring it to market in a way that has really coincided with this interest, the protein boom, like proteins and everything, and slap that on the label and, kind of off to the races you go. How much of that, clearing the regulatory hurdles, actually figuring out how to get it to market, coincides with like this demand for high protein anything? And how much of it was like, irrespective of that, just like high quality product, great marketing messaging, great packaging in terms of the subscription, and that really working? And I'd imagine that, like, look, they're working in tandem, but I guess how much of a role has that kind of trend played?
Recently, for sure, it's played a huge role, and so lucky to have friends and voices like, the Peter Attias and Andrew Hubermans and Tim Ferrisses to like support that. So that's been like a big part of that. but we actually didn't design ourselves to be nutrient dense, to be like the highest protein to calorie. Like we didn't even know any of those things when we like started to build the business. It was like we got testing back for a broth, and I sent it to like Peter, Atia, who's a good buddy, and I'm like, Peter, is this right? And he's like, what are you? This can't be right. Like levels were all over the place. The USDA was concerned we had like thrown whey protein in it. We're like, what is happening? So like, we didn't design ourselves. We didn't create a business to be an extraordinary product. We created a business to like solve a problem of like balancing actually your populations. We have kind of like accidentally become an extraordinary product. And now, to your credit, like are kind of lucky to be riding the wave of protein. And I think more protein is better. Our understanding, like as we understand biology, like more protein every single day, inherently better. But when you toss a bunch of whey protein on top of like useless or empty calories, like I just saw protein popcorn in the store the other day, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like, you defeat the purpose of like the origins of protein, which is your protein is supposed to be like satiating and satisfying and come with micronutrients and phytochemicals and like all the amazing like balance of amino acids and like all of the great things that come with protein don't happen when we like just toss protein in. Oh, did you see the protein in the Starbucks? I was just like, what? And protein is also supposed to inherently be low calorie. So we're dumping all of these proteins into these like high or empty calorie foods. And that is, I don't actually know if that's going to be any better in the end. So we get to write it. We get to be conscious of telling the story that like all proteins are not equal. And we're really like, as we get a better understanding, as an example, like the primary amino acids of like leucine, lysine, methionine, we're 22% higher in leucine, 32% higher in lysine, 38% higher in methionine than grass-fed beef. So like the core of what makes protein amazing, we just have like a whole bunch of more of it per calorie. So we need to do a better job telling that story so we can demand a price point and continue to grow to what we really believe is like an extremely valuable product. And we'll see what happens with this protein wave. Like, where do you think? Great question. Where do you think that's going?
This episode of the Fitt Insider Podcast is brought to you by EGYM. EGYM makes some of the most innovative strength training machines on the market, but that's only one part of their integrated ecosystem. With connected fitness equipment, AI-powered gym software, and a comprehensive corporate wellness offering, it's forging the future of preventative health. Partnering with companies worldwide, EGYM's WellPass program improves employee health by expanding access to premier fitness and health facilities. Upgrading gym floors, EGYM equips every operator with smart equipment and AI tools to create hyper-personalized training plans for every exerciser. Putting it all together, they're transforming healthcare through exercise. Experience the power of EGYM's ecosystem at egym.com. It's really incredible that you're just like, hey, we were trying to almost do this entirely different thing, and it happened to coincide and line up with, and yeah, we can ride that wave. But I do believe that in some ways, yes, it is like a Band-Aid on the fact that our diets are not what they should be. People gravitate towards quick fixes and trends, and there's over the course of, the last 20, 30 years, like how many other proteins, quote unquote, have there been? A ton of them. And the same thing with a fad diet, a short term, how much weight can I lose, yo-yo diet. It's like, that doesn't end in a good place. But I think on the positive side, if in one respect, it makes people more aware of the benefits of protein and is their on-ramp to starting to think about this more closely. And two, at the same time, if it then brings companies, turns the spotlight to Maui Nui and regenerative agriculture and sustainable, like that is the thing I think long term, if we fast forward, like on the other side of this, is it like, do I hope everybody's drinking like prepackaged protein drinks and protein pop. No, I hope it has gotten to the place where the demand for companies like yours and products like yours and harvested in a sustainable, like that is the thing that I really hope again, fast forward out, that's what we've taken away from this, because it's just, that's actually, as you've talked about it, like the system level solution to what's happening here. It's not the band-aid that we've slapped on this. So now kind of putting that into perspective and how now in like the day-to-day, that kind of broader consumer trend or even like wellness kind of macro trend aligns with what you're doing. Like the actually sustainable harvesting, like that, the fact that you've been able to, one, kind of tackle this problem that you saw and do it in a way that is very true to you and actually helping people and the community along the way. Like that's the much more difficult, much more interesting aspect of the business. Like, how have you been able to do that in a way where it's like clearly demand is growing and you're figuring out all these other aspects and you're, worrying about commerce and conservation and community? Like, how have you been able to strike that balance?
I think being a part of this place, so island communities and ecosystems are a little bit different. By default, whether it's like lack of resources or isolation or whatever it is, by default, you kind of end up in a mode of servitude. So you kind of like, there's just a little bit, everybody's just a little bit more aware that like, if we don't work together, this could be really bad. And so I think that underlying like thought process and really like having been so lucky to marry like an extraordinary Hawaiian woman who like has like lives and breathes this every day. That underlying principle inevitably like feeds and bleeds into everything you do. So I think it like starts there. It starts with like a somewhat irrational commitment to community. What I have learned, which was like early on, felt like oftentimes from like a, to be honest, like a business standpoint, it felt like a deterrent. You were just like, you knew you like wanted to keep giving, and oftentimes you gave too much and like it was bad. And we've done that a few times. Now that we've scaled, it is actually probably our biggest competitive advantage. So the way we take care of people and the way we've taken care of community has only very functionally turned into like retention for employees. I don't pay for PR, extraordinary like feedback from customers. All of that like language has like really moved into how we care for our community and customers, and our customers like feel like community to us. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but like, it really started right there. So if you start with an irrational commitment to community, and I could like see the big picture a long, long time ago, then whatever you're doing to scale, inherently those two things are like so intertwined, right? Really tactically, I run, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but like I run constant experiments. Even today, like my team is so sick of the word experiment. Like, we're running an experiment. We're doing an experiment because an experiment allows you the authority to stop whenever you want. An experiment requires you to collect data in the process to get like a yes or no, did that work? And we literally just run them all the time. There's probably 15 different experiments going on right now. And the very first experiment I ran was 17 nights ago with like me and a truck and like one buddy. And we were like, I wonder if this will work. And we've done that over and over again. And I think it's one of the only ways we've been able to solve what is an extremely complex systems problem. How many others of them do their raw material run away from them? Like, we domesticated animals for a reason. Like, we domesticated animals to grow them to a particular size so they fit into the meat system. When you're like raw material is like really smart and decides like it's not cooperating for the evening, it's extremely complex. And it is at the same time in being genuine. It is so fun. Like getting to go from every day the complexity of like wild, stress-free harvesting to how do I like what is the language I'm going to use tomorrow on this ad to get them over the hump of like it's not going to be gamey, it's not the venison and everything in between like RFPs for 3PLs like it's a blast. And so lucky to I heard this a long time ago, I think on a Tim Ferriss podcast, but like it was like don't be the best, be the only. Like I got to be like I so luckily landed into like right into the thing that's supposed to be for me and is the only. So I just get to be irrationally obsessed and energetic all day long to try and solve it. So it's a roundabout way to answer the question of, well, how do all these things work? Really, that's how it works. You just keep going every single day and you do so doing something you love and I'll get to do it for the next 50 years.
In life, just day to day, finding someone that is the life they're living is that aligned with their beliefs, with their contribution to community, with their impact on the world, right? Like it's rare. And when you do that, you obviously get to spend more time with other people who think that same way, right? That like attracts like. And so I'm sure you have also been fortunate in that way that there are other people and then, you kind of elevate each other and support and challenge each other. But taking that and trying to apply it beyond just like everyday life interactions, the framework for business to say, oh, this is how you be a community driven company or a mission led company or committed to the planet or to the food system or to the, obviously there's the Patagonias of the world that kind of come to mind. And it, even in that case, it's very much like you're describing. It's just like, well, we committed to it and then we never compromised and we will never compromise. And so everybody wants this. What is the answer? Kind of teach us how to do it. And it's in hearing you describe it, it's like, no, we did it and we do it and we will do it every day. And like, that is the thing that continues to fuel what we're doing. There's not a question.
And isn't the thing that ultimately like convinces your customer to try? Like they hear it and they feel it. And I think more than ever, customers are starting to understand like who are truly genuine. Because maybe one of the scariest things is with AI, every company is being forced to iterate extremely quickly. But every time they iterate, they have to keep their brand promise. And they're going to mess it up if they don't if it's not like a core to who they are in all of their like every employee they touch, if they don't understand it, iteration is going to be risky because your customer is looking for transparency. It's looking for genuine connection. And they're only getting more educated. Has there ever been a time that consumers got less demanding? No, probably not. Like as they become more educated, they're looking for transparency into like, where did it come from? How did you get it? They're looking for, specifically with food, I think they're looking for like, how many good things am I getting per calories? They're looking for that like energy balance conversation, right? And I think kind of the core of what you're talking about here is like, are you making food with purpose? Or are you just making food for money? And luckily, the last part of that is like, and it has to taste incredible. Like, let's be real here. You can do all 3 or 4 of those things. And if it doesn't taste great, like, too bad. Remember getting really lucky and getting to talk to the Magic Spoon founders. And the first business they made was like the cricket protein. And they were like, that was a good idea, but it tasted like shit. But if you can do those things, if like you're genuinely transparent, if you're a win from like an energy balance standpoint, lots of amazing things for not a lot of calories, you are creating food that has actual purpose and it tastes great, you win. And I think a lot of companies get to do 2 of those, maybe 3 of those. We are really lucky to accidentally get to do all 4 of those.
To your point, like I couldn't agree more. It's like it's very rare. It's almost I don't want to say impossible, but difficult to replicate because you do in such a unique way check so many of those boxes where other folks it's not that they are so much telling their brand story as they are constructing it or trying to put it together and what's the right pitch and what's the right angle. And it's like, you just get to do what you like. You get to authentically live that. And then that is what comes through. And that is another thing that fuels the entire flywheel of what you're doing. And yes, as consumers become more educated and there's more access to information, but also more, whether it's AI, whether what's real or not, whether it's more technology, it's like back to that point around the short-term fix of, hey, throw protein in everything. In this case, it's no, the kind of meaningful, authentic, values-driven, like real brands, companies, people end up shining through because it's like, wow, I just want something that's not fake, that's not slop, that's not just like another thing that's out there in the world. And it's, one thing, and it would be great to get your perspective on this. It's like, on one level, it's like we know that, right? Like as humans, as people that are trying to make healthy choices, and even as we zoom out, it's like as a society, it's like we should be doing these things. Like we should be aligning our interests with the animal welfare, with meat production, with the food that we're like, and we just don't. And so, in some ways, like Maui Nui has spent, as you said, 25 years trying to solve this problem. When it's like it's in all of our best interest to solve this problem. How do you think about that tension of like, yes, obviously you like you should be buying this like you kind of should be supporting us, or at least companies like us, but like that is not the kind of status quo. That is not the norm. This is the abnormal thing or way to do business or product to buy. In one case, I guess that's an opportunity, but on the other hand, it's like there's just a fundamental misalignment.
So a couple things came to mind immediately, which is one, we're not for everybody. So we're expensive. We believe it's like worth that much. So we can't get to everybody and like solving this like a problem for them or what problem they're trying to solve for themselves. And we've chosen to irrationally support community. So we give away hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds and we bake that into what we request a customer to pay as a function of that, right? So like not all foods are for everybody. So it's part of it is like really finding your customer. But I actually think, and I know you've had this conversation before, I actually think like the one thing that could actually like get us meaningful steps towards that is nutrient density on a label. So when a customer can really understand the amount of good things, macros, micros, phytos, peptides, all of the things, when they can really understand the amount of good things per calorie they are getting, I believe it starts to fundamentally change the food system. Because when you try and make good food, it is inherently like significantly harder than if you try and make reasonable commoditized food, right? So if you're trying to make the best apple, it means you have to care for that tree and that place and that soil, like the idea of like regenerative agriculture. None of that is valuable until tactically a customer can look at it and be like, that is more valuable than that. And they have to be able to decide that in seconds. If a mom, let's use like the most extreme emotional example. A mom is feeding her kid for the first time, done breastfeeding, this like a tablet, whatever, there's like going to be the first real food that goes in their mouth. And she like rolls to the pea aisle or apple aisle or whatever it is. And she looks at it. Where do you think she's going? She's going to what, like, she does not care. She's going straight to the thing that is like the very, very best thing for her brand new baby. And she currently can't make that choice. That's coming. We know the people working on it. And that is going to fundamentally change our food system, if not corrupted, let's face it. And there are some really cool minds. I know, you know, Justin Mayer's A Kettle and Fire, like Anthony Gustin, like there are some really cool minds that are like tinkering with this behind, and it could change all of the ways we think about food. And at the same time, a family that can't afford the best thing, they still have a choice. They still can go and say like, okay, that thing's a little bit better. I can afford to be a little bit better today. And that's okay. Like a little bit better every day is awesome. So I think those fundamental changes are on like a large, large scale. If everybody understands how many good things I'm getting per calorie, it could make literally all the difference in the world.
On one hand, you get these answers. And I've also had these people on the podcast and respect what they're doing, but like the solution is we engineer this and we create this entirely different thing that's never existed and we pack it with all like and essentially create a new food or create an alternative food or create a better version of food. And then on the other end of the spectrum, it's like what you're actually saying is like not that extravagant. It's not that complicated. It's not, yes, it takes a kind of systemic shift in a focused implementation to get that information out there, help people get more informed, put more information on the label. But fundamentally, it's not drastically different. And like that's the thing. It's like we kind of need to do those small things to enable the big change, not this, hey, reinvent the wheel over here change that I think sometimes is more interesting, maybe.
I wish somehow we could do more of what we do and sell it for less. We can't. We choose not to. We're unapologetic about how we support community. People don't like to talk about it. We have to be profitable in order to do that and in order to continue to grow. The vast, vast majority of people that produce food only are able to be profitable at like crazy scale. But if there are two apples sitting beside each other and one apple is significantly better than the other, and it demands a much higher price point, the person that produces that apple, that's much harder to produce, is going to be profitable. So when you look at like the very base of the food system, like, can we convince people to grow food that's good for us? It has to be profitable to do so. If all of that food was profitable and demanded like the price point it represented as a function of like value on that label, we'd make a lot more of that food. Pretty simple. When you grow anything as a small farmer and you then compete with a commoditized product right beside you, you have no chance. Yeah. So yeah, we can come up with these like amazing miracle foods that like, or we could just like learn how to grow food well and give it the appropriate price for the people willing to put in the effort to grow it well.
As we kind of wrap up here, obviously, I'm sure you got a lot of things both in the pipeline. You mentioned any number of experiments going on at any specific time. Whether it's things you're excited about, maybe things that you'll be launching or just what you're talking to the team about, what's kind of top of mind right now at Maui Nui or something we should be looking out for?
I just ate an entire pound of our new lunch meat, like right before we did this. I am for sure the most excited about that. It's for sure one of the best products we've made in a long time. It took, I can't even tell you how many like experiments and iterations to not put a bunch of filler in it, not put a bunch of fat in it, like an ultra lean, no saturated fat, super high protein to calorie, like all the things we're talking about, like doesn't exist. And took us a long time, but we made it. So its technical name is like, it's a summer sausage, but it really is like just, it replaces any lunch meat that you've ever had before. And brilliant, like, it's a combination of like a red sea salt and a pink peppercorn. So it's a brilliant, bright flavor. Anyway, really, really selfishly, extremely excited about how many summer sausages I get to eat in the future and how it solves kind of lunch for me and my family personally. And then right behind that, it took us 10 years to figure out, but we figured out how to age our venison. So very tactically, like convincing people to eat venison when they hear it and they're like, oh, I don't know. This made all of our venison even better tasting. So it's easier to cook. It's better tasting. It's softer. It really has really, really had been probably one of our biggest product improvements in 10 years. So really excited about like our reserve kind of aged venison line and the new summer sausage that just came out. And yeah, we're just selfishly, we eat a lot of it, and we're just really excited to. Yeah, summer sausage just launched a few days ago. I'm so excited to start hearing back from our customers on how they enjoy it.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good place to leave it. Maybe for folks who are interested in checking out some of the new summer sausage, the new age venison, or really anything else about Maui Nui, where would you point them?
All on the website, MauiNuiVenison.com.
I'm super grateful for the time today. I really enjoyed the conversation. So thanks so much for being here.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you got value from the conversation, please consider subscribing and sharing the podcast with a friend or colleague. It's a massive help. And if you want more content like this, including news and insights on the latest industry developments, subscribe to the Fitt Insider newsletter at insider.fit.co. And one more thing, you can learn more about our recruiting and consulting services at fit.co. That's FITT.co. I'll see you here next week.